delegate of Brazil. Okay, so now the delegate of Bulgaria has the floor for 1 minute.
The delegates of Bulgaria want to share their positive experience because maybe you know, but maybe you don't know, Bulgaria is takes the presidency of the Council of the European Union, and during the discussions and the event that takes place there, it turns out that regional cooperation in the field, because Bulgaria also have problems in the same sector, and the biggest problem is the lack of funding. It turns out that through sharing of positive practices and cooperation, there is future for this field. For example, Bulgaria now is focused on its relation with Macedonia, and they are working on future meetings. So maybe this is a positive approach that can be followed. And maybe the delegation can stress on that we should, we are here to act collectively and share experience. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. And now the delegate of Brazil has the floor for 1 minute.
Thank you, Chair. The delegate of Brazil would like to contribute from the country's personal experience on the management of a transboundary groundwater resource, an aquifer, that we share with Argentina, Uruguay and Paraguay, which is the Guarani aquifer, and there we profited also from the cooperation of NGOs and other international organizations like the International Organization for Atomic Energy. And this is just to stress that we need to incorporate all these actors, and what this project taught us is that we can use in technologies like isotope hydrology to determine where the water flows, that we can protect it better, that we can manage the aquifer better and divide the resource in a more fair way between countries and users, and also that we need transparency in the information. We still lack information on many aquifers, whether they're national and especially when they're transboundary and international, and it's crucial that we implement clauses that this information is shared between countries, that we are all on the same knowledge stand on this, and that the results of scientific works on the aquifers are transparent to the society and to the countries involved. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate of Brazil. Are there any other speakers wishing to talk about this topic? Okay, given that there are none, this caucus has elapsed due to lack of speakers. So now the floor is open to motions. Are there any motions on the floor at this point? Delegate of Vietnam.
I would like to put forward a motion to talk about salinity intrusion for half an hour, 1 minute for each speaker. Caucus.
So moderated caucus proposed by Vietnam on the topic of
salinity intrusion.
Inclusion?
Intrusion as a
Inclusion, yes, thank you. For the duration of 30 minutes. And the speaking time 1 minute, you said? Okay, thank you. Are there any other motions on the floor at this point? Delegate of Iceland.
Thank you. The delegate of Iceland would like to propose the topic of preparation for a reaction to changes caused by climate change, especially natural disasters. 1 minute per person, moderated caucus for about 25 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, so could you repeat the topic again?
Preparation for a reaction on changes caused by climate change, particularly natural disasters.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other motions on the floor at this point? Delegate of Macedonia.
And the delegation of Macedonia would like to propose a moderated caucus on the topic of freshwater preservation for the length of 20 minutes with 1 minute time per speaker.
Thank you, Delegate of Macedonia. Are there any other motions on the floor at this point? Seeing that there are none, we will now move into voting procedure for the first moderated caucus, which was proposed by Vietnam on salinity intrusion. Duration 30 minutes, speaking time 60 seconds. Everyone in favor of this motion, please raise your placards now. Everyone against? Thank you. This motion fails. Now we will be voting on the topic suggested on the moderated caucus suggested by the delegate of Iceland on the topic of preparation for a reaction on changes caused by climate change and natural disasters. This moderated caucus would be 25 minutes long, speaking time of 1 minute. Everyone in favor of this motion, please raise your placards now. This motion passes. Thank you, delegates. And since Iceland has suggested this motion, would the delegate of Iceland like to speak first or last?
First, please.
Thank you, delegate. Are there any other delegates wishing to speak on the topic of preparation on changes caused by climate change and natural disasters? Delegate of Bhutan, you've been recognized. Delegate of Singapore, also been recognized. Bulgaria, you've been recognized. Vietnam, you've been recognized. Uganda, you've been recognized. And Brazil, you've been recognized. Tuvalu, thank you. Tuvalu, you've been recognized. Okay, so thank you, delegates. And the delegate of Iceland now has the floor for 1 minute.
Thank you. You may all know that Iceland is volcanically and geologically active, and its interior consists of a plateau characterized by sand and lava fields, mountains and glaciers, while many glacier rivers flow the sea to the lowlands. You may also know that the country is facing constant volcanic eruptions, and actually one of the most famous volcanoes in Iceland is due to erupt anytime soon. Hence the country has taken all kinds of solutions, has been thinking about all kinds of solutions, and has been elaborating scenarios for evacuating the entire country in case of natural disasters. So I'm curious to learn about other countries who are facing direct or indirect situations. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. And the delegate, yes, Brazil?
I have a question to ask. Brazil has a question wants to react Iceland said. So
Is the right of reply? Yes.
Asked for a right to reply.
Yes.
Okay. So, do you suggest that Iceland is facing more volcano eruption due to climate change, if I understand well?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Iceland has been experiencing volcanic eruptions for many years. It is not known at the moment if climate change is causing several or further eruptions. However, the country is preparing mentally and financially to react in case of another eruption. The last one happened about 40 years ago, has caused the life of quite many people on the island, and of course extreme economic damages.
Thank you for your answer.
Thank you, delegates. And now the delegate of Bhutan has the floor for 1 minute.
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, the Kingdom of Bhutan is facing a lot of risks due to glacial melting, glacial lake outburst floods. So we need to take measures to counteract these floods. And as we are a pretty poor country, we are part of the G77, meaning that we are a developing country. We don't have the financial means to adapt to these changes in the future. So yeah, we ask the international community to provide these international means to adapt to climate change and to potential risks related to floods and vanishing glaciers. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. Now the delegate of Singapore has the floor.
Thank you very much. Regarding more the climate change aspect, we think it is very important to establish international independence in correlation with forming bonds internationally to find solutions together. The main key should be to avoid conflict and to letting countries out of any contracts or letting them alone with their natural disaster or the impacts they have because of climate change. We will experience more inequality in the future. Some places will have more water, some places will have droughts, more than they do today. And so we think that technology, again, is a key aspect. And the management and the transfer of knowledge should be a good point. We should start now and should have started a long time ago, because preparation, especially regarding climate change, could solve a lot of problems. And countries should definitely think of spending more financial resources and workforce in the problem. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. And the delegate of Bulgaria now has 1 minute.
Thank you, dear Chairman. Bulgarian delegation strongly supports the position of Bhutan and their situation, and also the aspect of the technological aspect of Singapore that was mentioned. And as mentioned before, the environmental movement in Bulgaria is strong and has long history, and it has the will to attribute to the global situation and help for solving global problems as well. And recently discovered topic of this movement, precious finding, is the idea of the ecological diplomacy, which is focused on only preventative measures in terms of crisis prevention. I think this again is another important message that should be spread and countries could focus on. Thank you very much, dear Chairman.
Thank you very much, delegate of Bulgaria. And now the delegate of Vietnam has the floor.
Thank you. Vietnam strongly associates with Bhutan's and Singapore's view as regards to need of help and technologies, and as regards to necessity of independence and of a major economical resources to put into this. Vietnam is a country very subject to hazards, droughts and floods, and we have a big problem despite the great effort and initiative implementing climate change adaptation. State finances can only cover about 30% of the needs, and the necessity only to remedy, not for prevention to climate change hazard damages in the future is estimated to exceed 3 to 5% of the GDP for 2030. So prevention is not always an option that can be taken immediately, although it should be, because damages are already very high and an international agreement should be found. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate of Vietnam. Now the delegate of, oh, sorry, Bhutan, do you have a point?
Actually, I wanted to have a speaker's time for Bhutan once again.
Okay, well, if that's the case, and I do not ask yet whether someone wants to be added to the speakers list, you can just pass a note forward.
Okay, so
Okay. Uganda, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The delegation of Uganda echo with the previous countries about stressing of the significance on the preparation, as well as we would like to highlight also the importance about like after natural disaster and also like during the hard time. In the past 2 decades, on average, more than 20,000 of Ugandans were affected by this natural disaster. So we all know that the main objective of disaster preparedness is to ensure in times of disaster, appropriate administrative and also technical measures can be conducted and to assist countries who are suffering from that. So like, therefore, Uganda has established a very effective monitoring and evaluation system, but at the same time, we call for the other member states to collaborate with us, because monitor system will only work out in maximize its the biggest impact if with the cooperation with other member states as well. So we strongly recommend to have a multinational and regional system to support each other before, within, and after the disaster as well. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. And the delegate of Brazil now has the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Since one of the major impacts, not only for Brazil but worldwide, of climate change are droughts, we'd like to focus on it now and also other water-related disasters. Brazil specifically has benefited, for example, from projects of institutions like universities that promoted inexpensive measuring tools, also for communities to improve water conservation on a household level. So it's improving water sustainability, and this is crucial when water is not sufficient for communities, not only governments, not only institutions who have relevant knowledge, but also simple people to be aware of the lack of water and to use it wisely. So we support to include research institutions and universities more into the policies we will implement. And we'd also like to stress that we will need better drought forecasting and drought-resistant crops, as well as other sustainable farming practices to address the problem. And that there needs to be a coordination at all points between various institutions, not only in the when a problem arises, but also before. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate of Brazil. And now the delegate of Tuvalu has the floor.
Thank you. Tuvalu supports the proposals of Singapore and Uganda made so far to work together on the international level, and it suggests cooperation in order to exchange knowledges and measures and techniques of preparation, as Tuvalu is especially exposed to the sea level rise and floods. What has been done here so far was to put sand sacks in order to minimize the coastal erosion, but we would look forward to get more knowledge. Thanks.
Thank you, delegate. Delegate of Macedonia.
This delegation would like to be added to the speakers list.
Yes, please make sure that if you'd like to be added to the speakers list, to either say so during or while I ask whether someone wants to be added to the speakers list, or to send me a note. I will add you now, but just for next time that you know. Okay. And now the delegate of Bhutan has the floor.
Yeah, the Kingdom of Bhutan wanted to just once again bring up the issue of climate justice in this matter, actually, because we don't have the means, the financial means to adapt to all these risks, whether it is droughts, floods, or sea level rise. So we are not really responsible, especially Bhutan, because we are carbon negative regarding climate change and greenhouse gas emissions. And yeah, we ask for industrialized countries to take responsibility for their actions, for their greenhouse gas emissions. Thank you. I yield my time back.
Thank you, delegate of Bhutan, and now the delegate of Macedonia has the floor.
Thank you. The delegation of Macedonia would like to point out to a point left out in the current debate, namely that the IPCC report and similar studies have shown catastrophic climate change induced consequences for countries that can afford such studies, for example, Iceland and Spain. However, researchers in similar geologically affected regions are largely missing, for example, in the Balkans. This leads to poor countries not being properly prepared for changes caused by global change and natural disasters, as the delegation of Bhutan has previously mentioned. Therefore, this delegate would kindly request for richer countries to share their technology and know-how expertise on this topic with the rest of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate of Macedonia. And now the delegate of the United States of America has the floor for 1 minute.
The United States would recommend wide-scale collaborated effort between all of the countries in the world, since a large percentage of the global population is at sea level. We need to deal with both the short-term and long-term repercussions of the rise in ocean sea level. I think all of our information should be shared on an open source platform. We need to invest more money directed towards the scientists, meteorologists studying atmospheric conditions. We need to prepare in the short term with additional retaining walls and flood prevention methods in direct paths of potential storm surge in connection to hurricanes, superstorms, since climate change is increasing the global cyclonic energy and hurricane paths are becoming more unpredictable. We need to protect the low-lying communities and share this information on a larger scale. And we need to think about long-term solutions that are going to resolve these issues. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate of the United States. Are there any other delegates wishing to be added? Yes. I'm sorry, Russia, Samoa, Canada, Indonesia, Austria, Argentina, Iceland and Spain, Brazil, okay, are there any other delegates wanting to speak on this? Okay, given that there are none, Russia has the floor for 1 minute now.
Thank you, Chair. While this delegate is not an expert in natural disasters, we do want to shortly comment on the problem of natural disasters. The Russian Federation is not a nation that is prone to many problems with natural disasters. The ones that we do have, we mostly can manage. However, we do want to point out one big problem, and that is forest fires. Mostly we can manage them within our country. However, we have the big problem that While they're mostly caused by man, they mostly spread into our country from other countries, especially China. Therefore, we would like to call out all neighboring states to please educate their population, just as the Russian Federation did, on the importance of responsible treatment and responsible and taking care of forests, especially because they are a great habitat for, and a great source for biodiversity, and are very important due to CO2 emissions. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate of Russia. The delegate of Samoa now has 1 minute.
So as other countries, Samoa is also highly vulnerable, and there are a lot of natural disasters as well. So Samoa is also lying in a seismic zone, which is also called the Ring of Fire. So it is subject to earthquakes, which are often followed by tsunamis and cause significant damage to communities, infrastructure, and the economy. And for example, in December 2012, we had a really big cyclone, which caused damage worth $315 million, which was equivalent to 30% of the total value of all goods and services in Samoa. And there is this specific resilience program, which already invested $14 million to strengthen the early warning system, and it also guarantees financial protection. However, we also support, or Samoa supports Singapore, Uganda, and Tuvalu. That we need more international cooperation, and because we don't have or Samoa doesn't have the financial means itself, and we also ask the developed countries for their respective contributions, because we as a small nation state, I would say, have not really contributed to anthropogenic climate change.
Thank you, delegate. And given the statement by Russia earlier, and the delegate of China has asked for a right to reply. Is that still?
That's still correct.
Okay, great. So China, you have the right to reply.
Thank you for the right to reply. China wants to say, we really apologize for anything we send to any other country, and we want to open the possibility to any other country to contribute and to work together. And we have accumulated a lot of knowledge about financial, technical, and different possibilities to work against climate change, and we address any country to come to us and work together. We are really willing to work with you and to give you a lot of knowledge of which we have gained and which we try to spread all over the world. Thank you. I send the time back.
Thank you, delegate of China. Is there a comment Russia would like to make on this statement?
Yes, Chair. Thank you for this possibility. First of all, thank you, Honourable Delegate from China. Your apologies are well received. However, I would like to point out that this does not change the problem or the position of the Russian Federation. Accordingly, we would still like to see an effort for education on your behalf of your population. Thank you.
Yes, delegate of China?
Right to reply?
Yes.
China wants to reply if we have developed a new system of education and health topics for our population, and that we are asking you to spread out exactly what you want us in the topic of like wood fires for our country to do. So we can work together and try to figure it out together. I'll send the time back.
Thank you. Delegate of Russia, would you like to make a final comment on this?
Yes, thank you. The Russian Federation is looking forward to collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate of Russia. And now the delegate of Canada has 1 minute speaking time.
Thank you. Yes, Canada also strongly agrees on the need of an international knowledge transfer and cooperation in research regarding this topic, but we suggest to base that collaboration on a similarity in the challenges. So for example, Canada is working on strategies to deal with extreme weather events as well as floods caused by melting ice shields. And we would welcome every country to join this efforts or this research, and we would also would be willing to share our outcomes with every country who needs the knowledge. Thank you. I send us hand back.
Thank you, Delegate of Canada. The Delegate of Indonesia now has the floor.
Thank you, Chair. As an archipelagic country with extensive low-lying and small island areas, Indonesia is highly vulnerable to the adverse impacts of climate change. We have already experienced extreme climate events such as floods, and we are anticipating long-term impact from sea level rise. And climate change is believed to increase the risk of hydrometeorological disasters, which make up 80% of disaster occurrences in Indonesia. Therefore, in order for us to reduce its vulnerability to climate change, we must strengthen our climate resilience by integrating its adaptation and mitigation effort in development planning and implementation through collaboration with other countries. With that, we give the time back to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate of Indonesia. Also, please, all delegates, remember to refer to yourself in third person. And now the Delegate of Austria has the floor.
Thank you very much. Austria would like to point out its support in an increased cooperation of the international community concerning or regarding that most of us are concerned or affected by natural disasters. Also, Austria was affected by an increase of floods or hail and was thankful for the help that it has received in the past. The increased cooperation could take place either through exchange of knowledge or also through direct help after the event of a natural disaster. We would also be happy to cooperate in an exchange of knowledge regarding disaster preparedness and response, as it was done in the past as a support to Western Balkan countries from Austria. Thank you. We will yield back the time.
Thank you very much, Delegate of Austria. And now the Delegate of Argentina has the floor.
Thank you. Argentina wants to share with you its experience as glaciers are receding and there is a projected temperature rise of 3.5 degrees by 2050 due to climate change. We're additionally facing a lot of extreme weather events as droughts or floods, both, and therefore we ask for also a common share of this of responsibilities, as Bhutan was kind of demanding, and we want also to stress that not only the preparation of climate change, of the problems we face by climate change should be considered, but also the prevention, and that if we look at how to prepare or cope with the problems, we should do this in a sustainable way, and I'm looking forward to international collaborations.
Thank you. Thank you, Delegate of Argentina. Now the Delegate of Iceland has the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Delegate of Iceland would like to thank Macedonia and USA for their comments, and especially we agree with Canada that we need to be specific in the recommendation and share solutions. In this way, Iceland will be very happy and privileged to offer concrete solutions and practices in case of prevention, resilience studies when it comes to earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and glacier melting. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate of Iceland. Now the Delegate of Spain has the floor for 1 minute.
Thank you. To reduce loss and damage due to disasters as a consequence of climatic changes, the Delegate of Spain agrees that we need to start the preparations, such as climate change adaptation planning. For this, we need allocated resources. The more we invest in climate adaptation, the less we need to deal with loss and damage due to climatic changes. The Delegate of Spain would like to stress the importance of dedicated climate adaptation funding, as well as the Delegate of Spain supports
the establishment of an open source technology and know-how platform where best practices to build climate resilient systems can be shared. Thank you. I yield my time to the chair.
Thank you, delegate of Spain. Now the delegate of Costa Rica has a point.
I totally agree with Spain, and I
Sorry, would you like to have a right to reply?
Yeah, right to apply.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you for the right to apply. I totally agree with Spain. Costa Rica totally agrees with Spain and proposes to continue the Green Climate Fund and take the resources out of this to fund this preparation on changes caused by climate change. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate of Costa Rica. Would the delegate of Spain like to comment on this?
Thank you for your comment. No, any additional comment from my part. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now the delegate of Brazil has the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The delegate of Brazil is happy and very glad that disaster risk management was mentioned in the debate, and we believe that we need more international cooperation on this, because we already have the global platform for disaster risk reduction, but it only meets every 2 years and it's not sufficient. So also in Brazil we had a national plan for disaster risk management, and we believe that we need to share our experiences on this topic because it's crucial. Also, we'd like to mention the different ways of how we can address the issue of this moderated caucus. One of them is, of course, data integration. We still don't have enough data on social and environmental effects and health effects of natural disasters that is being integrated in the policy. So we need first to commit more funds and more resources to formally collect this data and then integrate it. Also, we need more inspection and law enforcement. What does this mean? For example, in drought-stricken areas, we need inspection of wells, and in flood-affected areas, we need inspection of homes, whether they are ready for floods. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate of Brazil. Given that we have 1 minute left in this moderated caucus, is there any delegate who still wishes to speak? The delegate of the United Kingdom, you've been recognized and have 1 minute.
We agree with everyone that international corporations are needed, but we shouldn't forget that emergency response and recovery arrangements should be flexible and tailored to reflect circumstances. So decisions should be taken at the lowest appropriate level, with coordinated at the highest necessary level. Local agencies are the building blocks of response to and recovery from emergency of any scale. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate of the United Kingdom. Since now the moderated caucus has elapsed, this caucus has been concluded. And are there any motions on the floor? Delegate of Macedonia.
The delegation of Macedonia would like to motion a moderated caucus on the topic of freshwater preservation for the length of 20 minutes with 1 minute per speaker respectively. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate of Macedonia. Are there any other motions on the floor at this point? Delegate of Russia.
Thank you, Chair. The delegation of Russia would like to move for a moderated caucus of 20 minutes, 1 minute each, on the topic of plastic waste and other pollutants in water. Thank you.
Are there any other motions on the floor at this point? Given that there are none, we will now move into voting procedure for the moderated caucus suggested by Delegate of Macedonia on the topic of freshwater preservation, duration of 20 minutes, speaker's time of 1 minute. So all delegates in favor of this motion, please raise your placards now. All right, this motion passes and is now in order. So since the delegate of Macedonia has suggested this caucus, would the delegate of Macedonia like to speak first or last?
First, please.
Thank you, delegate. So the delegate of, are there any other delegates wishing to be added on this to the speakers list? Delegate of Trinidad, thank you, and delegate of Algeria.
Point of parliamentary inquiry.
Yes.
Could the chair please state the topic once more?
Sure. So the topic is fresh water preservation, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. Are there any other delegates wishing to be added to the speakers list? Oops. Given that there are none at this point, the delegate of Macedonia now has the floor for 1 minute.
Thank you, respected President. This delegation would like to address a specific problem faced by the countries in the Western Balkans, but also other poor regions of the world. Western Balkan countries experience more and more the privatization of water, but also the destruction of important functioning river systems by foreign companies through the mass deployment of small hydropower plants in the rural mountainous Balkan areas. Especially Austrian energy companies dominate this sector in the Balkan region with a market share of 86% in hydro energy. And even though Austria has done a lot for the Balkans in the past, in many regards, there is room for improvement. We are therefore convinced we also speak for our neighboring countries when we ask bigger and wealthier countries to help impose stricter regulations upon transnational water and energy companies active in the Balkan regions and other poor regions in the world for the sake of promoting healthy river systems, biodiversity and habitat conservation. Thank you. We would like to yield the rest of the time to the chair.
Thank you, delegate of Macedonia. Given that there's no time left, or once there's no time left, you don't actually have to yield anymore. And now the delegate of Trinidad has 1 minute.
Thank you. We believe that the preservation of surface water and groundwater, both in terms of quantity and quality, is essential to ensure the continued reliable water supply in the face of a changing climate. We stress that water resources, even in non-water stressed countries, should be managed, particularly in terms of the consideration for downstream users. It is also key to properly apportion and prioritize the supply and use of water resources in such a manner as to yield maximum benefit for agriculture, hydropower, ecological and human usage. Therefore, we call upon the more developed countries present and those with advanced water management knowledge to engage in knowledge transfer to developing countries, in particular, small island developing states and areas facing water shortages to maximize the benefit of existing water resources. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate of Trinidad. Now the yes, Russia.
Right to reply?
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. The delegation of Russia would like to ask the delegation of Trinidad and Tobago, yes, okay, whether they see a difference between the already discussed exchange of knowledge and technology for integrated or better water management and the just mentioned better management of fresh water and lakes. Is there a difference? Thank you.
Can you specify some more? I didn't follow your question, sorry.
I will try once more. Oh, we will try once more. This session already discussed before lunch that we want to improve the international transfer of knowledge and technology to enhance the water management, especially in developing countries. And what you just mentioned seems to fall under that decision, or decision by this session. So the Russian Federation is wondering why the delegation raised this point once more. Thank you.
You were specifying only part of what I said, and you're focusing on only a tiny part. And yes, I did reiterate something that you previously mentioned, and I therefore also agree with you, so I do not understand what your question is about.
Thank you. I believe that we will discuss this in another manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate of Russia, and thank you, Delegate of Trinidad. Now, a Delegate of Algeria has the floor.
Thanks, Your Honor. We agree with the delegation of Macedonia to highlight this important point. Global freshwater resources are threatened by rising demand from many quarters. Growing populations need ever more water for drinking, hygiene, sanitation, food production, and industry. Policymakers need to figure out how to supply water without degradation the natural ecosystems that provide it. We invite all the governments to start setting policies and making investments in infrastructure for water preservation. With our time back to the chair.
Thank you, Delegate of Algeria. And now it is possible again to be added to the list of speakers on this moderated caucus. Delegate of Vietnam, recognized. Are there any other speakers wishing to speak on the topic of freshwater preservation at this point? Uganda, Brazil, Delegate of Bulgaria. Okay, Delegate of Austria. Thank you. So now the Delegate of Vietnam has the floor for 1 minute.
Thank you, Your Honor. Vietnam would like to stress once again the necessity of international response and an international organization to coordinate such problems, also in the field of not only of exchange of know-how and expertise, but also of data and integration and studies on field, on local communities and local areas by international community where such expertise is not handy and not disponible on the land. I yield our time back to the chair.
Thank you, Delegate. And now the Delegate of Uganda has the floor for 1 minute.
Thank you, Chair. Uganda actually is being well recognized about like how we have endured with significant freshwater resources, but at the same time, even though we have implemented a lot of facility and infrastructure on preserving our freshwater resources, we also face a lot of challenges, including seasonable rainfall, and also as well as the pollution and also the environmental degradations happening in our country. So we would like to call for more technological support and other countries, your good case practice about like how we can improve our surface water hydrology, as well as not to be some kind of technology, not to so dependent on our seasonal rainfall climate. Thank
Thank you, delegate of Uganda. Now the delegate of Brazil has the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Brazil would like to come back to a topic mentioned a couple of minutes ago, which was hydropower, and it was mentioned in a rather negative light. But we are here at a conference about environment and sustainable development that should benefit both the environment and the development of the economy in the countries you're talking about and you're representing. And we also believe that climate change mitigation and adaptation can only rely on hydropower. The question is, how do we implement it? And what measures do we implement it to make it more environmentally friendly, that it has a lesser of an impact on the environments and the ecosystems. So we believe that we will need hydropower. What we need is an exchange of best available that technology throughout the country, so that we make sure that the effects are not overproportionate. And also we believe we should focus on pollution that is maybe produced by companies on freshwater resources, and we need to enforce the legislation there. So we should focus right on this and not the first topic.
Thank you, delegate of Brazil. Now delegate of Bulgaria has the floor.
Thank you very much.
Excuse me, delegate of Bulgaria. Russia, would you like to reply to this?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. The Russian Federation wonders whether the delegation of Brazil is aware that while their use of hydropower is, of course, very reasonable in terms of energy, it also leads to a massive decline of biodiversity in their rainforests, especially concerning wetlands, because the different wetlands are just all being flooded because of the dams you need to operate your hydroelectric power. The Russian Federation therefore believes that this is a rather short-viewed side of sustainability, and would argue that we should find better alternatives than producing sustainable power at the cost of biodiversity loss. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate of Russia. Would the delegate of Brazil like to comment on this point?
Yes, thank you. The delegate of Brazil would like to comment that we stand with our point, that it does not make sense to dismiss one technology just because it was not applied before in an optimal way. We believe it is needed to reach our climate goals, and that we need measures to ensure that it is done in a good way. There will always be trade-offs. We agree with that. We might want to consider how we build those plants. We don't even need the same type of dams. There are different technologies to be implemented. And we are also aware of the consequences on Brazilian ecosystems, and we are researching that. But we do believe that this is a good enough reason to dismiss the whole technology. And also believe that although we value our alliance on some topics with Russia, we believe that Russia is not to preach on this topic because on environmental topics in general, because there are some issues there too.
Thank you, delegate of Brazil. Delegate of Russia.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. The delegation of Russia did not want to insult the delegation of Brazil if we did so. However, we do strongly want to stress the point that we have a sustainable development agenda, and the goal is not to reach separate goals, but all of them. And if you just say, oh, well, we want sustainable energy, and do not think or disregard the incredible biodiversity loss that you're causing thereby, you are not operating on behalf of this agenda. And this is what the Russian Federation wanted to point out. And there are definitely better opportunities for the Brazilian government than hydropower. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate of Russia. Would the delegate of Brazil like to make a final comment on this?
Yes, just a brief comment on this, because we should be discussing more important issues with the time we have. We believe, of course, that Russia is maybe not the most competent in the matter of Brazilian politics, but we believe that we still have to discuss this topic in a more detailed way. We cannot just dismiss it, and we can discuss it in bilateral discussions later, because otherwise it will just impede the debate on important topics here. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate of Brazil. And now we will continue with the speakers list on this moderated caucus with delegate of Bulgaria.
Thank you very much.
in a way answering to the delegation of Russia. We want to remind that we are here to find the most urgent problems that we have to solve and find the best ways that we have to solve, how to solve them, in order to solve them. And Bulgarian delegation is supporting the position of Brazil, but in this regard want to pose a question to the delegation of Macedonia if they have more clear view, ideas or expertise that they can share and that we can discuss, and if they are good, implement them elsewhere. Thank you very much. Yeah, my time back to you.
Thank you, Delegate of Bulgaria. Please also be reminded that if you are on the speakers list, you cannot directly ask a question to a different country, but you can form the question as a sentence, being, for instance, does the delegation or can the delegation of Macedonia please please give me more information on this topic, and I am saying this because it is important to me. Okay, so just don't finish it with the question, right? Now the delegate of Austria has the floor.
Thank you very much. Austria would like to point out that Austrian companies are not only operating in other countries, but also thereby passing over knowledge to local communities. And also Austria is very happy to strengthen and continue our support and the cooperation as it was in the past with, for example, Western Balkan countries regarding exemplary water resource management. Thank you. We yield our time back to the chair.
Thank you, Delegate of Austria. Are there any delegates wishing to be added to the speakers list at this point? Delegate of Ireland, thank you. Delegate of Macedonia, thank you. Okay, so now the delegate of Ireland. Yes, please.
Point of order.
Yes.
How do we send around notes?
Okay, so it's actually point of order would be if I made a mistake. Okay, and you would basically tell me, well, this is wrong, you're not supposed to say this to me. So it's actually point of information or parliamentary inquiry, right? But rather point of information. I mean, given that there are not actually people here anymore who can pass these notes around for you, I was earlier thinking about the possibility of maybe sending notes through emails. I'm not sure if that would be a possibility for anyone.
I'm available.
Sorry, do you also represent a country?
To a certain extent, but I'm also the journalist and I was a panelist speaker, so I'm kind of doing that and doing this and did some of that as well. So.
I mean, if that's what you'd like to do, then sure.
I'm kind of participating back here, but.
Okay, well, I mean, you could also, if you'd like to keep your placard with you in case you would like to raise a point, if that's okay with you, yes, sure, thank you. Okay, thank you. So now the delegate of Ireland has the floor for 1 minute.
Thank you. The delegation of Ireland agrees extremely with the statement of the delegation of Trinidad that even countries with enough water resources should optimize their use of water, especially considering that there are countries in the world where the inhabitants are using over 500 liters of fresh water each day. Thank you. I'm yielding the rest of my time to the chair.
Thank you, Delegate of Ireland. And now the Delegate of Macedonia has the floor.
The Delegate of Macedonia would like to answer a point raised by the delegation of Bulgaria, namely about the possible solutions our government would suggest towards the problem of small hydrometeorological dams. One of the possible solutions would be to ban building such dams on rivers that are smaller than 100 cubic meters of water per second. However, one of the problems is that these rivers belong to more than one country in the Balkans, and we need to therefore strengthen intergovernmental cooperation in And in that order, we believe that this topic should be discussed in unmoderated caucus later. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate of Macedonia. Are there any other delegates wishing to be added to the speakers list at this point? Given that there are none at this stage, the moderated caucus is thereby elapsed, and the floor is open to motions. Yes, Delegate of Russia.
Thank you, Chair. Motion for a moderated caucus on plastic waste, 20 minutes and 1 minute per speaker. Thank you. Oh, sorry. The topic should be plastic waste and other pollutants in the water.
Thank you, Delegate of the Russian Federation. Are there any other motions on the floor at this point?
Point of parliamentary inquiry. What do we need to say in order to change the time of the motion, of the debate motion by the Federation, by the Russian Federation?
So you could actually, technically speaking, just ask for another motion, and in that motion you change the time. Great. So are there any other motions on the floor at this point? Delegate of Macedonia?
A motion for the same topic suggested by the delegation of Russia, but with the time of 15 minutes and 1 minute per speaker, respectively.
Thank you. Is it possible for you to repeat the topic?
I believe it was plastics in fresh water and other pollutants in water.
Yeah, plastic waste and other
Plastic waste and other pollutants in water.
in water. Thank you. And the duration suggested would be 15 minutes. Am I correct? Okay. And speaking time?
1 minute.
Okay. Thank you. And
I'd like to reply.
oh, it's
Sorry.
you can't actually reply to a motion.
But there is a question.
Yes.
Is fresh water considered as seawater considered as fresh water or not? No. No. Okay. By definition. Okay.
It's actually, if you have a question like that, so basically whether it's that you don't know what a word means, or whether it's that you can't hear a person, you can say point of personal privilege, okay, and then it can be defined for you, okay? So Delegate of Singapore.
I would suggest a motion for a moderated caucus regarding the topic of water sanitation regarding the management of wastewater with a duration of 20 minutes and speaker time as well.
Sorry, can you repeat the topic, please?
The topic would be water sanitation regarding wastewater management.
Thank you, Delegate. Are there any other motions at this point? Delegate of Iceland.
Thank you, Chair. The delegation of Iceland would like to raise a motion on the topic of regulation of population growth as a potential measure to reduce oppression on Earth's resources. Thank you.
Regulation on population growth.
Yes.
And
As a potential measure to reduce the pressure on Earth's resources.
as a potential measure to
Reduce the pressure
reduce the pressure
on Earth's resources.
on Earth's resources. Okay.
Thank you.
For the duration
Of 15 minutes with 1 minute per delegate.
with 1 minute speak time. Thank you, Delegate of Iceland. Are there any other motions on the floor at this point? Delegate of Brazil.
The delegation of Brazil would like to ask for a right to reply to the motion of
Iceland.
And so given that it's only motions which are proposed to be discussed, it's actually not possible yet to discuss it. So if you would like to have the topic of Iceland to be discussed, you basically vote against the motions which were mentioned before Iceland, and then it's possible to discuss that topic, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. So are there any other motions? A delegate of Algeria.
Delegation of Algeria motion to start a moderated caucus to talk about pull out of the US from the United Nations Paris Climate Agreement. 90 seconds speakers time, 20 minutes general time. And its impact on the world, the impact of the pull out of the US from the agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate of Algeria. Are there any other motions on the floor at this point? Okay, given that there are none, we will now vote on the topic suggested by the delegate of Russia, being plastic waste and other pollutants in water, with a duration of 20 minutes and speaking time of 1 minute. Everyone in favor of this motion, raise your placards now, please. Okay, so this motion fails. Now we will be voting on the topic proposed by Singapore on water sanitation regarding the management of water waste. The duration would be 20 minutes, speaking time of 60 seconds. Everyone in favor of this motion, please raise your placards now. So this motion also fails. And now we will vote on the topic proposed by Macedonia on plastic waste and other pollutants in water. Speaking time of 60 seconds, duration of 15 minutes. Everyone in favor of this motion, please raise your placards now. Okay, so this motion passes with an overwhelming majority. And given that the delegate of Macedonia has suggested this motion, this moderated caucus, would the delegate of Macedonia like to speak first or last?
Last, please.
Thank you, delegate of Macedonia. Also, please be reminded for any other motions, caucuses, that actually if you are a speaker who suggests this motion and you say that you want to speak last, you can still, technically speaking, if you raise your placard first, you can still also be the first speaker. So just for you to be aware of this for any other moderated caucuses and also this one. Thank you. And are there any speakers wishing to be added to the speakers list at this point? Delegate of Russia. Delegate of Costa Rica. The president of this, and highly encourages everyone who has not spoken yet to please also engage in conversation, especially also since a lot of delegates have voted for this topic, indicating that it is a very interesting topic for everyone to speak about. Thank you, delegate of Austria, delegate of Brazil, okay, so now the delegate of Russia has the floor for 1 minute.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Session, for acknowledging the importance of this topic. The Russian Federation would like to continue upon a resolution that was recently adopted by this committee. Unfortunately, we were just unable to find the specific number, but we will try to look it up. Unfortunately, this resolution was dampened down and just wishy-washed, I guess, by some member states who are among the most important emitters of plastic waste, and the Russian Federation, however, still believes that we need to act upon plastic waste, especially because it is distributed all around our planet and in our ecosystems. Especially, we would like to push this resolution and push on actual actions against plastic waste, requiring, for example, member states to reduce their plastic waste production, perhaps similar to the NDCs. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate of Russia. And now the Delegate of Costa Rica has the floor.
Thank you. Costa Rica is currently improving and increasing their protection marine zones, and we're intending this also from the other member states today for the protection of marine species. Thank you.
Delegate of Costa Rica, thank you. And now the Delegate of Austria has 1 minute.
Thank you very much. We would like to raise a point regarding the Danube as being the world's most international river, tracking through 10 countries and 4 capitals. As was noticed in the last years, there was a rise in plastic waste, pesticides runoff and pharmaceutical waste, with the biggest difficulty being to work out where exactly these pesticides and this waste enters the Danube. As was figured out, 40 tons of microplastics are being transported through the Austrian country every year. We acknowledge the effort of all the countries that are affected to reduce their waste and for taking measures to clean their water, and would like to encourage the affected countries and also Austria as well in doing his part to further strengthen their measures. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate of Austria. And now the Delegate of Brazil has the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Since Brazil is the country where 20% of the world's waterways lie, and since rivers transport actually plastics to the world oceans where then the plastic dissolves and is transported by currents, we realize also our important contribution to resolving the problem. And we would also like to stress the importance of focusing on microplastics specifically in any solutions we work on, because these are the most dangerous types of plastics. They're very small, they're ingested by animals, and they're difficult to detect. So we have had some minor issues with this also, not only in freshwater ecosystems, but also on our seas. And we think we should address this, but we also would like to point out that in all the need to produce institutional water management and waste management, we need to remember that many people depend on informal ways of collecting waste and then selling it to the market and making a profit. So we need to include all people, populations in any measures we take, and it's not just the state taking over, but it's really including them so that everyone benefits. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate of Brazil. Are there any speakers wishing to be added to the speakers list? Delegate of the United States, Delegate of Delegate of Estonia, Delegate of Romania, Delegate of Iceland and of Singapore, and Delegate of Samoa. Okay. So now the Delegate of the United States of America has the floor for 1 minute.
Thank you. Since the United States is such a large polluter and a large contributor to the global pollution crisis, and specifically plastic waste, we're going to work on educational material to raise more awareness of the microbeads and the problems in the hair gel and the lotions and all the different products they're in. We're going to work on a national microbead ban, as well as implementing regulations in all washing machines to have microfiber filtration systems built into them. This is going to help keep microfibers from polyesters, rayon, lycra, nylon, and spandex materials from entering the waterways. We're going to make this standardized in all washing machines before the water is released into water treatment facilities. We're going to make this standardized similar to smog checks in vehicles, and hope this sets an international example. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate of the United States. Tuvalu, it's your floor now.
Thank you. As Tuvalu is located in the South Pacific, it has experience with this big carpet waste in the oceans, and it would be up for an international action taking to clean up the oceans. Although Tuvalu cannot provide financial support, it could provide human resources, as the nation is known for its experienced sailormen.
Thank you very much. We want to give your time back.
Yes, please, I would yield it back to the chair.
So, Estonia, the floor is yours.
Thank you. The delegate of Estonia would like to raise awareness of a very successful program on the topic, which is called Blasting, and it aims for reducing the plastic waste and hazardous waste in the Baltic Sea region, and it is considered to be highly effective, and it is an international project. So if any country is interested in how to organize this, they can take it as an example, and we can help it as a scientific expert. And the delegate of Estonia would like to second the proposal of the United States to make an international ban on microbeads. Thank you, and I would like to yield my time back to the chair.
Thank you very much, Delegate of Estonia. Romania, the floor is yours.
Thank you. The delegate of Romania would like to say that is very passionate about the plastic pollution, and it's an issue that, in the delegate's opinion, was recognized too late, and the deadlines that many countries are setting up upon fighting this is too late. 2050 should not be a target. Now should be a target. Also, education, in the delegate's opinion, should be included in the curriculum so that pupils learn about this topic from an early age, where plastic ends up, what is it actually made of, and what actually are they ingesting when they drink from a plastic bottle. In terms, for example, of microplastic that are used in makeup and toiletries, from my knowledge, the FDA, when they look at approving such products, they are not looking into analyzing the content that toiletries contain of microplastics. There are also many things that people can do to improve this problem. They should refuse straw unless you are incapacitated and you need to drink from a straw. Just shop naked, and not in the sense of going naked in the superstore, but just refuse plastic packaging and buy from the local market. I would also like to point a great initiative called the Precious Plastic. If you're an engineer, you can maybe construct these machines and rebuild items from shredded plastic.
Thank you very much. Iceland, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Iceland is also recognizing their contribution to plastic waste, especially being a large fishing nation that exports fish all over the world. One of the measures we have undertaken to reduce our plastic waste and fishing nets left in the oceans is to review our practices and to impose strict regulations to prevent future fishing nets to be left or abandoned by our fishermen in the ocean. Hence, education of fishermen is already taking place all around the country. However, we also want to stress out that given our position in the Atlantic Ocean, we are dependent on imports of fresh vegetables from other countries in Europe, Spain especially. Usually, normally, they travel large distances and they come in plastic packages. And we are wondering what is Spain's response in sending us such vegetables?
Thank you, Delegate. Now the Delegate of Singapore has the floor.
Thank you very much. A lot of nations are focusing on the microplastics, what's really an important topic, but as well as the microplastics, we have to focus on the countries that don't even have a functioning waste system and where the waste is completely just brought out into the sea and is just left there. And so we think it is really important to help other countries and, again, to transfer knowledge and to bond internationally to be able to make countries being able to have a waste management system that works and that doesn't contribute to the macroplastics as well in the ocean. Thank you. I yield my time back to the chair.
Thank you, Delegate. Now the Delegate of Samoa has the floor.
Yeah, I really appreciate Singapore's idea for international cooperation. And yes, maybe not everyone knows, but a lot of plastic is actually important because Samoa is, we're dependent on imports, and all of those imports are wrapped up in plastic. And in the end, we do not have a recycling system in Samoa. Everything is sent to China to get recycled, but of course there's also a huge carbon footprint. Everything can be found on landfills and also on the roadsides. And as Singapore already mentioned, it's all going to end up in the ocean at one point. And also people in Indonesia, they eat around 90 kilograms of fish every year, and fish in the Pacific region, they are consuming 30% more plastic than the global average. So in the end, it ends up in the food chain. So we also really support what Romania suggested to raise awareness, as education is key. And also Samoa invites participants to come over to the Pacific to really have a look at our landfills and where all of the trash that have been generated in other parts of the world end up in really remote locations. And so that we can take international action.
Thank you, Delegate. And yes, Delegate of China.
Right to reply?
Yes.
All right, China invites all the countries all over the world to send their waste to our country so we can recycle it. We'll send the time back to the chair.
Thank you, Delegate. Would the Delegate of Samoa like to reply on this?
Yeah, I think Samoa does not really have another option in sending it to China, but Samoa also thinks that another option must be found. It must be looked for other solutions, and Samoa also relies on the know-how and technological know-how from other countries so that we can maybe implement our own recycling system in Samoa, and that they're not depending on sending it to China anymore. So.
Thank you, Delegate of Samoa. And did the delegation of Romania have a point?
Yes, I would just like to mention.
So is this a right to reply, or is this
yes, sorry, right
added to the speakers list?
Yeah, right of reply. Okay. Please do not take this as an attack. It is not. The invitation should not be to recycle. As we know, recycling, we put something in the recycling bin, but actually we know that it doesn't get recycled. The whole focus should be to move away from plastics as much as possible, because even if they would all get recycled, that would be such a stressful process that adds a lot of stress to the environment. So if China might reconsider its invitation, instead of inviting to recycle, rather invite to cooperate on finding alternatives.
Thank you, Delegate. Actually, it's not possible for you to reply on a right to reply. So if it would have been directed to Samoa, that would have been an order. But to China, that was not actually an order. But just for future. Okay. Thank you. And now the delegate of Russia has the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The delegation of Russia is pleased to hear mostly positive feedback from the session and would like to, is looking forward to collaborate with all willing states to enact a system similar to the Paris Conference and the NDCs as previously proposed. However, we do think that we should not, that we should act on, as I just said, the NDCs, or on a similar principle, not enforce every nation to adhere to a specific principle, since we're all at a very different stage of development. Accordingly, I would not, so the Russian Federation does not support a strict ban of special plastics, but would rather propose that we use a system similar to the NDCs. And lastly, we would also like to call out to the major contributors to plastic waste that haven't commented yet, namely China, Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam, and India, on their actions to combat the growing problem of plastic waste. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate of Russia. Delegate of China, yes?
Right to reply.
To which country?
To Russia.
Okay.
So we would like to contribute, and we still invite every country to send us their waste, because we think that as long as we still use plastic, it's better to recycle it than not to recycle it and not use it again. Thank you.
Russia, would you like to answer to this?
Yes. Two questions, or two points, to be honest. First of all, as far as the Russian Federation is informed, China just recently stopped accepting any plastic waste from Europe. So first off, we're kind of wondering, because these positions do seem to be inconsistent. And secondly, we would also like to stress that while recycling may be a proper way to deal with plastic waste, it obviously isn't enough in China, since you're still one of the major contributors of plastic waste. So we do not tell you how to stop plastic waste entering the oceans, but we do think that China should do more. And whether that is by recycling, more recycling, better recycling, whatever, we are definitely open to your suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate of Russia. Would the delegate of China reply to this?
Yes, we would like to reply and ask the Russian Federation for its own example of dealing with their plastic waste.
The Russian Federation does not think that this is the point to elaborate on the different measures we have taken to combat plastic waste, but we are definitely open for bilateral exchange of knowledge and know-how. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate of Russia. And now Vietnam, yes?
The delegation of Vietnam would like to ask for a right to answer to the delegation of Russia.
So this would, you mean for a right to reply to the delegate of Russia to his points? Yes?
Thank you. The delegation of Vietnam recognizes that there is a big problem on plastic waste in Vietnam, and that something is also being done. There are many projects with NGOs and especially with the Project Danila in Denmark to bring education in cities and local communities. At the same time, Vietnam does not agree with the delegation of Russia that there should not be a ban on certain plastics, and also does not agree with the delegation of Singapore regarding not concentrating on this, because although it would be a challenge also for Vietnam, for which Vietnam asks the international community for aid, we are convinced that it is important to stop production of plastic in accordance with what the delegation of Romania said as soon as possible, integrating both microplastic, plastic bags with changing to recycling plastic bags, straws and all replaceable or useless objects, both on this level, so eliminating such things, and on level such as was suggested by Singapore delegation of implementing recyclement and helping developing countries to implement this, but both levels should be implemented, and Vietnam recognizes there is work to be done and is willing to do it with help of the international cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you. Would the Russian Federation like to reply on this?
Just shortly, the Russian Federation is pleased to hear this modern view of Vietnam, and would definitely like to collaborate with the delegation or with the entire nation of Vietnam on this topic. However, we would shortly like to elaborate on why we think that we should not ban specific chemicals or plastics in chemicals in plastics, and rather act upon just every nation enacting their own actions that they might contribute. We believe that it's important to include all nations, and we do not believe that this will be the case if we try to ban several chemicals, because some nations just depend on using these chemicals or applying them or recycling them. Economically, they do depend on it, and therefore they can't just say, okay, we will just stop it. They need to have more time, and they need to be able to set their own goals in doing so, and thereby we can, as an international community and with all stakeholders, act upon this problem. And while we do welcome the engagement on the Vietnamese side, we do not think that it would be appropriate to ban all plastics just like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate of Russia. Yes, Delegate of Indonesia.
Yes, delegation of Republic of Indonesia would like to reply to delegation of Russia.
Yes, if Delegate of Russia would be okay with that, then there would be another right to reply. Yes.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, I think we think that in combating the waste, we need to have an integrated approach, and we agree with the delegation of Republic of Russia that we need to have a synergy and collaboration. One of the action that has been taken in Indonesia 2 years ago, the Environmental and Forestry Ministry, we set a target to reduce the amount of plastic waste by 50% by setting in motion a new policy requiring retailers to charge for plastic bags. And for our information, that Indonesia produced 64 million tons of waste annually, and 14% of the total amount waste was plastic waste. So yes, we agree that we need to have a synergy and collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Would the delegation of Russia, Delegate of Russia, like to reply on this?
Thank you, Chair. Just briefly, we welcome the contribution of the delegate of Indonesia and look forward to collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And now the delegate of Costa Rica has the floor.
Thank you. First, I want to support the idea of Russia for the ideas with the NDCs. I think it's a very good idea. Secondly, Costa Rica is very affected of plastic pollution, as the main sector is the turtle conservation sector and for tourism, and youths are dying because of plastic pollution. And for instance, technology as sea bags, those are boats that recall the plastic out of the sea, and I think we, as an international organization, should enforce and fund those ideas and those good companies that try to reduce pollution. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Delegate of Costa Rica. Given that your time is out elapsed, would you like to?
I want to give it to the chair.
Thank you, Delegate. And given that we still have time on the speakers list, the delegate of Spain, delegate of Vietnam, delegate of Tanzania, and delegate of Estonia. Given that this will be the maximum amount of speakers possible for this moderated caucus, it is still possible for any delegates wishing to speak on this topic to ask for an extension once the floor is open to motions again. So the delegate of Costa Rica now has the floor. Sorry, the delegate of Spain now has the floor.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank you, Iceland, for raising the issue of plastic packaging. The Spanish delegate agrees with your concerns. Spain's national climate change law and roadmap, currently in preparation in line with the EU legislative package, will address this topic, and Spain will demand companies to reduce plastic packaging. However, the Spanish delegate needs to stress that international cooperation and binds are needed to ban unnecessary plastic packaging. The delegate also welcomes the proposal of Russia regarding the introduction of measures to limit plastic waste, such as the nationally determined contributions that aim to limit greenhouse gas emissions. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. And now the delegate of Vietnam has the floor.
Thank you. The delegation of Vietnam agrees with the delegation of Spain in the necessity of banning unnecessary plastics, and would like to address this issue a moment more in regards to what the delegation of Russia said. It is true that many countries, including Vietnam, has economic profits or a need for plastics, but it is also true that there is a biological and human health issue arising very strongly because of plastics such as microplastics that has to be faced immediately or with maximum urgency. And in this, the delegation of Vietnam would like to say there are two levels to be implemented. One is the banning of these plastics together with an implementation of an intergovernmental association to help countries cope with this banning.
Thank you, delegate. And now the delegate of Tanzania has the delegate of Samoa.
The motion and then right to reply?
So it's actually only a right to reply. The motion is, if you'd like to suggest, for instance, moderated or unmoderated caucus, or
okay, then just right to reply.
Yes.
Samoa just has one question on banning all of the plastic bags. And we live in an island here, and we do not have any international organization that really enforces, for example, banning plastic bags around the whole world. So how would you actually ensure that it's enforced on a global level?
The delegation of Vietnam apologizes for the false use of words. Of course, the United Nations cannot ban or put constraints of all the nations, but it should be an international, an intergovernmental decided action to take individually, but with a common goal of banning a certain type of plastics, or the most polluting plastics, of course, is not a constraint, but it's a common goal to follow if all the nations come together to this agreement.
Yes, thank you for the answer. And I just wanted, or someone just wanted to throw it into the room also for other nations to think about it. Yeah, how we are going to achieve that goal, or the general plastic problem, because it's a worldwide problem, so everyone should take action.
you, delegate. Actually, if you would like to have another right to reply, it's technically speaking directly addressed to the country you are speaking to, hence Vietnam, and usually in a question. Okay. Thank you, delegate. And now the delegate of Tanzania has the floor for 1 minute.
Thank you. The delegate of Tanzania would like to support the idea on bans that has been raised. In recent years, the government issued a public notice to ban the manufacturing, importation, selling, buying, and the use of plastic bags under 30 microns thickness and those with 65 microns thickness used for water and juice packaging. Also, it surtaxes other types of plastic bags with 30 microns thickness and above by more than 100%. So, the delegation of Tanzania thinks a collaborative effort to bring such bans on a global scale would be beneficial in the effort to move away from plastic dependence. Thank you. I give my time back.
Thank you, delegate of Tanzania. And now the delegate of Estonia has the floor for 1 minute.
Thank you. As delegates before mentioned, plastics are not completely excludable at the current moment, and this topic actively affects the question for food security and food safety, because remote areas lacking food supplies can be supported by food, and this food can be only transported safely with a package that actually conserves the food. Therefore, the suggestion of Estonia is to financially support research and development activities that find alternative solution for plastics that makes the same effect, so keeps the food safe for human consumption. Thank you, and I will yield my time.
Thank you very much. And given that now this moderated caucus has elapsed, are there any motions on the floor? And please keep in mind that the coffee break will be happening in 10 minutes, so keep that in mind if there are any motions. Delegate of Macedonia?
We requested to be last on the list, on the speaker list.
Yes, that is correct. I apologize. And Delegate of Macedonia, since you have suggested the motion of a moderated caucus, you have the right to now speak for 1 minute on the topic.
Thank you. As a concluding word to this debate, the delegation of Macedonia would like to quote a study recently done in the United Kingdom by researchers of CIFAS Getty on the topic of plastic pollutions. The researchers claim there is a significant decline in plastic bags on the seabed in 2016 compared to 1990. Studies conducted on the ocean waterbeds near the European mainland suggest a drop of pollution by 15% compared to a decade ago. This suggests that measures to tackle plastic waste, such as the ban of plastic bags in supermarkets worldwide, is working. We therefore strongly suggest to apply similar measures to plastic bottles and portable plastic cups, for example. We believe that an unofficial commitment towards this goal through sponsoring and ratifying an article in this conference will greatly benefit the global war against plastic pollution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Delegate of Macedonia, and apologies again for not recognizing you. So now, are there any motions on the floor at this point? Delegate of Russia?
If there are no other motions, if there are no other motions on the floor, the Russian Federation would move to suspend the meeting and take an early coffee break so that we don't sit around for 10 minutes. Thanks.
Yes, are there any other motions on the floor at this point? Given, yes, Algeria?
A motion we already raised about moderated caucus to talk about pull out of the US from the United Nations Paris Climate Change Agreement and its impact on the world. Speaker's time 90 seconds, total time 20 minutes.
Duration of?
Speakers time 90 seconds, total time 20 minutes.
Okay, so given that coffee break will be in 4:15, the duration will be reduced to 8 minutes and speech duration hence to 35 seconds. And are there any other motions? Given that they're not at this point, we will move into the voting procedure for the two different motions. So basically, the motion for the moderated caucus is actually first, and hence will be voted on. Everyone in favor of this motion, please raise your placards. Okay, everyone against this motion, please raise your placards. This motion fails. And now we will move into voting to suspend the meeting. So please, everyone in favor of this motion, please raise your placards. Thank you very much. This motion passes and the meeting is suspended.